The Supreme Court just gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965,
which was passed to guarantee equality in how we vote, and of course addressing the systemic and historic racial discrimination, especially across the South.
And if I'm being honest, this is one of those moments where it just feels defeating, like a never-ending battle being black in America. It constantly feels like we're fighting battles anywhere, everywhere, at all times, just to exist.
Whenever black people make political, social, or economic progress, white people try to stop it. That's what just happened when the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, ruled against a black congressional district in Louisiana.
We're fighting racism, we're fighting discrimination, even battling skin folk that ain't kinfolk, while trying to hold on to the rights that our ancestors fought for, that we've had for less than 100 years.
There is something so insidious happening right now to the black community. The black community is under attack right now at a level we haven't seen probably since the Civil Rights era.
All the while, those same rights that our grandparents, great-grandparents fought, marched, were arrested, beaten, and bled for are stripped away.
As much work as it took to secure those rights, they recognized that there were some limitations there. And now here we are 60 years later, where the undermining of those efforts are in full effect.
But I'm Jew, welcome to the channel. Please like and share the video. Don't forget to sub. Now, let's get into it.
The Supreme Court has just released a major decision which could have a profound impact on the midterm elections. The justices issuing a ruling on a case out of Louisiana involving the Voting Rights Act, redistricting, and whether states must end any consideration of race when redrawing congressional maps. The decision potentially reducing the influence of minority voters and minority representation in Congress.
Kira, this decision is 6-3, written by Justice Samuel Alito, and it's a significant decision and a setback for the landmark Voting Rights Act of 1965, which was passed to guarantee equality in how we vote, and of course addressing the systemic and historic racial discrimination, especially across the South. This decision came in a case out of Louisiana involving a court-ordered drawing addition of a second majority black district in that state because of the size of the state's population. And the Supreme Court today, in this decision, said that the court violated the 14th Amendment by adding, the state rather, violated the 14th Amendment by adding that district. They used race impermissibly, consciously, to add a second district to aid those voters, and they said that is simply not allowed under our Constitution. Justice Samuel Alito didn't.
I know this is a lie, especially if you don't keep up with politics or kind of know the intricacies of everything that's going on. They basically said that states using the Voting Rights Act to give black voters a voice and power is racist against white people. If you have a large black community that could realistically come together and elect a candidate, not just a black candidate, but any candidate that speaks to them, their needs, that they think will support policies that benefit them in their community. And instead, the state splits the community across multiple districts, so they're always outnumbered, meaning it doesn't matter who they vote for. If everybody else in their district votes for somebody else, their vote doesn't matter. Their voting power is basically gone. That's not complicated. That's just math. And now what's happened with the Supreme Court striking down Section 2, gutting the Voting Rights Act, is them basically allowing states to use racism when districting, telling them as long as it's for a political reason that it's okay. So if you think about all these Southern Confederate states that never wanted black people to be free, that didn't want black people to have rights, that fought back through every stage of Reconstruction, and then ended up oppressing and suppressing black people after the Reconstruction era anyway.
The Reconstruction era was supposed to heal America's wounds after the Civil War, but it failed so badly that the racial and socioeconomic implications are still being wrestled with in America over 150 years later. And the Reconstruction era, immediately after the war, was arguably a failure. Instead of bringing everyone back together and promoting liberty and justice for all, things that would have been difficult to do due to the political climate and racial tensions, the Reconstruction era ended with social divides, economic imbalances, and racism so ingrained in the system that hate groups determined who could vote in some towns.
The civil rights movement of the 1960s was a movement struggling for rights which black people in America had during the Reconstruction era, when the federal government was basically steering the southern states toward doing right for freed black people, but lost following the Compromise of 1877, which again was when the federal government just tapped out and gave everything over to the southern states to run how they wanted, which led to Jim Crow, which led to voter suppression, which led to black people being killed killed, strung up, hung for trying to get the rights that we are now losing today. The Supreme Court ruling is a reminder of the fact that rights are not permanent. They can be reversed. America, and the Supreme Court in particular, has a history of dismantling laws and policies designed to protect black people. This is why we have to guard the gains made by our ancestors. That's what we're back to now, where black people will basically have taxation without representation.
Go as far as saying race can never be used in drawing these maps. That's something the court has affirmed before to comply with the Voting Rights Act, but he put a significant new limit on how courts can order states to draw their maps to be more equitable. He said that Section 2 imposes liability only when evidence supports a strong inference that the state intentionally drew its map to discriminate. So a setback for minority voters in Louisiana, and now, Kira, the impact of this decision is going to start to ripple across the country.
They have given states the right to just say, we did a new map for politics, not for race, even though it's all about voter suppression of specific races. White people rolling back civil rights but calling us divisive for talking about racism. I'll never be gaslit into not talking about racism or discrimination or slavery, civil rights, because we know racism is alive and well, and it's more overt now than it has been in the last 60, 70 years. So they're not even hiding it anymore. They're back to the Jim Crow era of passing laws that enforce racism and discrimination. The Voting Rights Act was written to correct racial gerrymandering, the act of forcing black voters into white conservative districts. Southern states couldn't be trusted to ensure black representation. Look at these maps. It's insane. If you don't know anything about anything, just look at the blue versus the red. That's representation that black people as a whole do not have anymore.
There is something so insidious happening right now to the black community, and most white people literally have no idea it's even happening. The black community is under attack right now at a level we haven't seen probably since the Civil Rights era. You know, with the Supreme Court gutting the Voting Rights Act earlier today, you've got the purge of black federal workers, attacks on nonprofit funding with the whole DEI boogeyman, and it's self-proclaimed white Christians leading the charge against them on all of these fronts.
Outrageous. What the Supreme Court just did is outrageous. Chief Justice John Roberts finally got what he's wanted for 40 years, the complete dismantling of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. The court has picked away at voter protections for years, but with the decision they made this week, those protections are all but gone. But this decision could end up eliminating up to 19 Democrat districts. 19 majority-minority districts, and that would significantly reduce minority representation in Congress, especially in the South.
I'm starting to think that maybe the Supreme Court is racist. Yeah, maybe. Even if you're a black Republican or conservative, there's no way you should be okay with this decision by the Supreme Court, because it takes away power of the black vote. They really want us to have no representation in government. Facts, that's what MAGA was always about, and they're putting it into effect. So the conservative justices think that having a black majority district is racial gerrymander, but diluting black people's vote isn't racial gerrymander. The John Roberts court will be seen as one that is corrupt, that turned the president into a king with their rulings. The only way any of this is stopped or reversed is if MAGA and these conservatives are completely out of power and Democrats take back the House to put brakes on all of this.
Let me be very clear about one thing. We are not going to let the extremists successfully rig the midterm election. We will not allow them to artificially hold power as a result of a racial gerrymander, a partisan gerrymander, or DeSantis dummymander. Doesn't matter what it is. We're not going to let them prevail. And we're not just talking about that. We faced this same very question about a year ago when Donald Trump and Republicans launched this scheme to gerrymander congressional maps all across the country and snatch away, according to what people objectively said, it was going to be 10, 12, or 15 seats, with folks claiming that Democrats could do nothing about it. But we stand here today, having fought back all over the place, in Texas, in California, in Utah, in Ohio, in New Hampshire, in Nebraska, in Missouri, in Indiana, and most recently in Virginia. And Democrats haven't lost the gerrymandering battle. We're winning it. And everybody understands that. Regardless of what they do in Florida, well, we'll continue to push back.
If voting don't matter, then explain to me why they are fighting like hell for black people to not be able to do so. Voting 100% matters. Anybody not using their vote is dumb. Anybody refusing to vote is dumb. Anybody voting third party with elections this important is dumb.
Whenever black people make political, social, or economic progress, white people try to stop it. That's what just happened when the Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, ruled against a black congressional district in Louisiana. The NAACP called it a devastating blow, and Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan warned that our representation is about to sharply decline. How does she know? Because it's happened before. Louisiana's population is 1/3 black, and black people hold 2 of the 6 seats in Congress. But today's decision will likely eliminate a black congressional district and open the floodgates for other former Confederate states to do the same. We've been here before. Historian Carol Anderson calls it white rage. In 1877, there were 8 black members of Congress. By 1901, there were none. Even in the 1960s, there were no black members of Congress from the South. When Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act in 1965, white Southerners fled the Democratic Party and became Republicans. And since then, no Democratic candidate for president has ever won the white vote. It happened again with Barack Obama. The majority of white voters voted against him both times. 1 year after he was reelected, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. That same day, officials here in Texas announced the nation's strictest voting ID law. And since then, states have passed hundreds of new restrictions. This is the endgame of a 6-decade-long campaign to destroy black voting power. They don't want us to vote. They don't want us in Congress, and they damn sure don't want another black president. They fear our vote more than anything else.
The Supreme Court has been chipping away at our elections for years. It is clearly carrying out Donald Trump's will with this decision. New York has always led the fight for voting rights and will lead again. I'm working with the legislature to change New York's redistricting process so we can fight back against Washington's attempt to rig our democracy. As soon as this decision passed, Florida already had a new redistrict map ready to go. While I was editing this video, news broke that Louisiana declared a state of emergency to cancel their current elections that are already underway. People have already started voting, and they're canceling the election to redraw the racist maps. This should scare everybody because it's basically a test run for what Donald Trump would be able to do in the midterms if things weren't going his way. Declare a state of emergency and cancel elections. It's what dictators do.
You know, just within the last hour or so, the governor of Louisiana issued a state of emergency proclamation. Suspension of closed party primary elections for the offices of representatives of the United States Congress. This is a Republican governor declaring a state of emergency to stop elections that are ongoing. You are correct that early voting will begin on Saturday, but military and overseas ballots, those already went out. The voting has started, and Republicans are willing to halt the voting through unilateral action of governors because they don't like the rules under which those elections will be conducted. And if you think this is going to end with redistricting, if you think this is just in Louisiana, you are not paying attention to what Donald Trump and the Republicans are getting us ready for come this fall.
So the only move that Democratic states or northern states have is to redistrict where they can as well to try to offset some of the losses that are going to happen because of this decision.
Should New York respond in kind by doing its own redistricting once the amendment, if the amendment passes?
I have long felt that we all have to play by the same set of rules, and the Republican caucus has made it very clear that they want and are setting rules of partisan gerrymandering. The Democratic caucus has tried to pass nonpartisan gerrymandering for 10 years. Republicans have rejected it. And so we have to all abide by the same rules. And so if Republicans are going to redraw North Carolina, if they're going to redraw Texas, if they're going to redraw and gerrymander every one of their states, then unfortunately, we have to provide balance to that until we get to the day where we can all finally agree to put this behind us and pass nonpartisan gerrymandering federally.
But the people that we actually elected are speaking out. They are fighting back.
As much work as it took to secure those rights, they recognized that there were some limitations there. And now here we are 60 years later, where the undermining of those efforts are in full effect. It's why I put forth an ordinance to put safeguards around our elections. There's a working group that I trust good recommendations will come from that. I do believe that we should secure our voting zones so that the president does not use his private militarized force to intimidate black and brown folks, and particularly working people. Again, this is yet another call to action for the people of not just the city of Chicago, but the country, that if we're going to protect our democracy, this will be the time to get engaged.
It is an attack on a crown jewel of our democracy. Illinois is the proud home to having sent more black congresspeople to Washington than any other state in the country. And the Voting Rights Act is an attack on black and brown people, on people of color, on minorities. The decision that was made today, rather by SCOTUS about the Voting Rights Act, is an attack on minorities across this country. We're not going to stand for it in Illinois. We're going to push back. We have options for pushing back, and that is under discussion with the legislature even today.
60 years of progress to end up back where we started is just so terrible. And the fact that there's people still alive today that marched, fought, bled, were arrested, beaten, threatened for the rights that we have today, that now see them being stripped away one by one in their lifetimes, has to be the saddest, most confusing thing for them. If this wasn't a wake-up call for America as a whole, I don't know what will be. Especially to people of color. Anybody that feels both sides are the same, they're both bad. They don't do anything for us. You have one side that is trying to strip away the rights and the voices of black people. There's no arguing there because we see it in action. It's just crazy after all these years. Black people really are back where they started and really are still fighting the same fight as our grandparents and our great-grandparents to have fair representation, to have our voices heard. The states that can fight back should absolutely fight back immediately, redistrict everything they can. And for us as people, we have to come out for the midterms. We have to vote in such an overwhelming number that they can't cheat. But shout out to my channel members. Thank you so much for supporting and thanks for watching. Y'all let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Also, make sure you check out the next video. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram for behind the scenes and life stuff. And I'll catch you next time. Peace.